Now, almost 90% of Australians have now received their first dose of COVID-19 vaccine, with over 7 billion doses administered worldwide. But despite the evidence, there are still people who doubt the science behind the jabs. So this morning, we're going to address some of the biggest concerns. Infectious diseases expert Professor Robert Booy has been working in this field for over 30 years. He's done 50,000 hours of research into vaccines. That's a lot more than we do on Facebook. Morning, Robert. Good to see you again.
Good morning.
Before we get into some of the specific claims, why does it seem to be so hard to dispel a lot of these myths?
Well, science is about truth and uncertainty. We build on the work of other people to increase our understanding, and we admit when we don't know exactly what's going on. Whereas people in silos want to be convinced and confirmed in their beliefs. Yeah. They need to be open to questioning and testing theories and working out what really is the truth.
Yep, that's a really good point. All right, let's get into the myths. Let's start with the claim that COVID is the same or is just as dangerous as the flu. How are they different?
Well, they're both RNA viruses. You both can see them under a special microscope called an electron microscope. But COVID, especially in older people, is at least 10 times more likely to kill you. And when you do look at it under that microscope, they're different. Corona means crown, and so that's what it looks like. The spikes look like a crown, whereas flu has different spikes, which look different. They're very different viruses.
Right. OK. Second one. For a lot of the anti-vaxxers, they question the safety of the shots. One theory says the vaccines are causing thousands of deaths in the United States. How do we know the vaccines are safe?
Well, it's been safely given to billions of people already, firstly. Secondly, in Australia, in the US, we do really careful surveillance for any untoward event. It doesn't have to be related. We look for a GP visit, a hospitalisation, a death. And when it's a serious adverse event, like hospitalisation or worse, it gets carefully investigated in the US, in Australia by TGA. So we know very precisely whether something is related or not. We look at the excess rate. Is it occurring more often than you would occur coincidentally in the background, or is it actually just the same? Yeah. And with COVID, we're actually finding that the excess death 10 times higher is in the unvaccinated people. And it's such a sadness to me that I know close personal friends and relatives who don't get that.
Yeah, and also they often extend that by saying they are rushed through. We had the person who discovered AstraZeneca on the program from the UK a couple of months ago, who said, we did this 17 years ago for SARS and MERS, and we've just tweaked it because it's a similar sort of coronavirus. So they haven't been rushed, have they?
No, that's science for you. mRNA was discovered the year I was born in 1961, and we've been working on it for decades. We've worked out how to make it less reactive. We've worked out how to make it to be packaged with a little fatty envelope so it can get in and actually create an immune response. We've been working on the different technologies for decades.
OK. Another common concern is that mRNA vaccines that you talk about can alter our genetics in some way. In simple terms, how do these vaccines work? Can they change our genetics?
No. mRNA is a message from the DNA. The control centre of your cell, the brain, sends out a message which says, make this protein in the machinery part, in the outer part, and that's where mRNA goes. It takes over the machinery of the cell to make proteins, and proteins are part of viruses. Okay. So that's how the virus...
So it doesn't change the brain bit?
No, it's no effect at all on the DNA. It doesn't affect your genetics, doesn't affect your long-term immunity. It's all about what happens in the machinery, which leads then to an immune response outside the cell, which protects you. OK, a lot of the anti-vaxxers point me towards Robert Malone, who was supposedly the inventor of mRNA technology, saying he opposes it. Who is he, and do his claims stack up? Well, he is an eminent scientist. He was working especially in the late 80s. He's one of a dozen people who's made major contributions. He's not the only one. Right. And the other dozen are actually all of the opinion that this is a great advance, that we should have vaccination for everyone. It's Robert Malone who perhaps, for his own personal reasons, I don't understand entirely, is highlighting that at-risk people should be vaccinated, but not everyone. Right. So he's a loner.
Right. So what about that? OK, the risk I'll risk getting COVID because I'm healthy, I'm young, I go to the gym, I play footy or netball, so it's not going to affect me that much.
All those things are really helpful, and the younger you are, the stronger your immune system. Your immediate, your adaptive immune system, your cross-immunity, everything is stronger when you're younger.
Yeah.
And you're likely to get COVID really mildly, especially as a child. So yes, if you're in your 20s and 30s, you do feel invulnerable, you do feel you could fight anything off. But there are people that we cannot predict from their health who do get COVID severely in their 20s and 30s, much more in your 40s and 50s, and boy, are you at risk in your 60s, 70s and 80s.
Yeah, and in your 20s and 30s, you could give it to your grandma who can't cope.
The public health campaign and the public health point is that we protect not only ourselves but our community.
Yeah, and we've got to think like a community. It's a really good point. Robert, always great to catch up. Thanks for coming into the studio.